you're not going to stifle a teenage boy's disgusting impulses. And like if you remove all normal material, they're going to find something that's going to be weird and scary.
It's going to be weird, yeah. Absolutely.
And then they're going to be like, oh, I didn't know I was into this. And then you're going to end up with some weird, kinky, post-pubescent boy living in your house.
Dude, ruined forever. Like, that's the guy that messages April about, like, photoshopping her into a picture where she's 80 feet tall and stomping on him.
It's like, I thought that was completely normal. That's all I could find on the internet. So.
Yeah, right? It seems like what everyone was into. The message board on that website.
On the message board
active.
I found, yeah.
Hello and welcome to Grown Up Christian. I'm Casey.
And I'm Sam.
And can I start us off with like some current events?
Yep.
Did you hear about the two dudes that broke into a Walgreens and stole a bunch of Cialis?
I did not. What?
Yeah, the cops put out an APB for 2 hardened criminals.
Oh my God. Fuck you, dude.
That took you a minute.
Yeah, shut up, dude. That's insane. I think I'm quitting. I'm quitting the podcast. I don't know if I want to do this with you anymore.
Nobody tells like street jokes anymore.
No,
and
but why did that even why was that sitting at the front of your mind to kick this off with? Did you hear that earlier and you're like, this is where we need to go?
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I wrote that down in my phone as like an intro topic.
Oh my God. Okay. I mean, but did you just hear that joke recently? Like,
yeah, I think I heard Greg Fitzsimmons tell it.
Greg Fitzsimmons, you popped a Cialis like 15 minutes before this intro, and you were like, "Oh, that reminds me of a joke that I learned in high school."
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't know if I really understand how Cialis works. So, like, if you pop like one of those or a Viagra or something, are you just strutting around with your kickstand out?
Yeah. Okay. This reminds me of a story. So I had a friend who worked overnight at a convenience store, and I used to just go hang out with him there for like all night. He lived across the street from that convenience store, so I would hang out with him till I got too tired, and then I would go like to his house and fall asleep until he got off work or whatever. And it was just kind of small town. He knew a lot of the people in the town, so one of the times I was hanging out with him there, a few people that he knew had gone in to just get something. They ended up hanging out for a couple hours. I don't know if you're really supposed to loiter like that, but it was just me, like maybe 2 other guys, and then my friend who was working. But it's like 2, 3 in the morning. Like you barely get anybody showing up. People show up, they would pump gas. I actually think they might turn the gas off, but there's not a lot people are buying at that time of night. Maybe cigarettes if they work the night shift, but it's dead. And someone was like, "Oh, I have a great idea. It's like they had the Viagra or whatever over the counter. It was like whatever they over the counter dick pills were, and they're like, we should all take one of these pills, and then first one to pop a boner loses." And I was like, this does not sound like for me. I wasn't that kind of a guy. So everyone does it. I didn't. I think they might have thought I did. It's possible I put it in my mouth and then just like took it out and threw it on the floor, and then was like, okay, also you guys are idiots because these don't make you pop a boner first. Like it just makes it so when you get a boner, it doesn't, like, it's just not going to stop. Like
it doesn't deflate
for 4 hours. But my friend who was working did it too. So he's just like, what was he going to do? What was his plan of action for the night? To just stand behind the counter with a raging boner for 4 hours while people came in to buy cigarettes at 2 a.m. It's so stupid.
Yeah, so you dared to say no.
Yeah, I said no. I did. I stood on my ground as a Christian. I had no business taking those pills. Anyway, so something that crossed my mind this week, unrelated to dick pills, was, do you remember, I don't remember what year it was. I should have looked it up before we jumped on here. But do you remember when the whole like cloning of Dolly the Sheep was going on?
Yeah, that had to be in the 90s.
Yeah, I'm looking it up while we talk.
That was a
Dolly
hotly
lived
contested item.
from 96 to 2003. So I'm wondering if I remember the conversation being sparked when Dolly died. Because I don't know what the average life expectancy for a sheep is, but if she lived from 96 to 2003, 7 years feels not long for a sheep, but I don't know. Are you a farmer? Do you know farmers that we can call right now?
I don't know anything about sheep, but that seems par for the course, you know? Like
Dolly had a
that
life
sounds sheeply.
expectancy of around 11 to 12 years, but Dolly lived 6.5.
Oh, so they crossed some wires when they were putting her together.
Yeah, I mean maybe, but the way that I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but cloning is just like you pretty much duplicate it. So, what I remember specifically about that was how talks about cloning and how that is like inherently against God's plan. Like what's next? Like that was it felt dangerous and scary. Like pretty soon you'll just be able to clone humans. Do cloned people have souls? Tons of conversations around that.
Yeah.
But, and then when Dolly died early, it was like, this is what happens when men try to do. Sorry, people. They're women scientists. Everybody, come on.
And they're as much to blame as the men.
But it's like, when you try to clone and duplicate God's design, even if it's the same, it's not going to work out and you'll die early. So then there was a lot of concern about like, if you clone a human, will they then like die? Will they die at 30 or 40 or like live short lives and have health complications?
Am I mistaken? But did Dolly have like an extra leg? I feel like there was one of those cloning deals where like the sheep kind of had like this extra sort of like small leg that just sort of hung.
I don't think so. Oh, apparently she was euthanized because she had progressive lung disease and severe arthritis.
Oh, soulless and a smoker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that being a very controversial thing. And I specifically remember some talks about how like maybe this is where the Antichrist comes from. Like maybe the Antichrist will rise up as, a clone with no soul that will be used as a tool of Satan.
That's super interesting because why would Satan need someone who is soulless when Satan has millions of humans in his clutches already?
I don't know. Why would Satan, use a doll to murder people? It's nonsensical, but it makes for a fun movie. Child's Play was great.
So, but with Dolly, one of the things, so I don't actually recall a whole lot of Antichrist conversation around Dolly. It was more around like but there were, I bet outside of Christian circles, even there was conversations around the ethics of cloning.
There's got to be.
There was always like this weird misunderstanding of it too, which I was part of at the time. But then when you think about it and you hear more about, one of them was like, oh, you're duplicating a person. And then the soul question is definitely particularly religious, but it's like, well, if you clone those people, are they inherently the same? Will they be the same? But then you're like, yeah, but that's what twins. Have you ever heard of twins? That's a clone, essentially, isn't it?
No. They're not genetically like identical. They just have similar look, right? I laughed at you and now I don't know. Yeah, I think like part of it is just why? We're
doing some on the fly research here. We're going to look really dumb on this episode, and that's fine because we're not scientists. I got a fucking Bible degree. So if you don't like my science knowledge, that's your problem.
I'm all for them figuring, working on stuff like that if they, if there's a practical application, but like, don't we need less people, not more?
Yeah, well, I don't know. You're getting your wish. This is like the lowest birth rate we've had in a long time.
Yeah, that's fine.
Real quick, I will let you know.
Part of those statistics.
Identical, yeah. Come on, man. What the heck? I'm gonna impregnate you in your sleep. Identical twins have the same DNA as each other.
Wow, really?
But different from their parents. So, but they are the same. So they have the same DNA. So if you are a twin and one of them murders somebody, but they both cover for each other with an alibi, I mean, who's to say, right? You can't predict that shit. I'm surprised we don't see more murdering twins on the loose.
Yeah, if one twin murders someone, will their genetic material, will forensics find the same genetic material regardless of which twin it was? I would think so.
Yeah.
That's definitely the plot of a movie. I just don't know which one. You know what I am interested in clones for is, did you ever see that movie, The Island, with ScarJo?
Yeah. Wait, was that
grow me some new organs? That's all. That's what I want.
What's his? Who else is in that?
Ewan McGregor, was it?
Oh yeah, that's what it was. I think I fell asleep during that movie, so I don't really remember it too well. Okay, would you? How about this? Pet cloning. That'd be dope, right?
Oh yeah, we've had this conversation quite a few times at our house. Like, if we could clone our cat Milo, like we would probably spend way too much money on that.
Yeah. Now, but what's weird about it is like twins being an example, right? Same DNA, but they're not the same. Like they don't turn out the same. There's like, they might be on a wavelength or some shit where they can like have those cool twin thoughts or whatever, but they're not exactly like, even when the same, like it's like nature versus nurture or whatever, like, but they don't turn out the same. So even if you could clone your pet, I mean, would it be the same? Would it?
I don't know. Would your pet be the Antichrist? Potentially. Oh,
now you've thrown something new here.
Yeah, deep cut. Dude, I feel like AntiChrist talk was always like kind of lingering around my community. Like there was a lot of speculation about who the Antichrist might be or what they might want or where they might come from.
I can tell you what they always wanted. Socialism.
Yeah. World peace, unity, and socialism.
Yes. All things inherently against Jesus Christ.
You know, the Nazi stands for National Socialist Party. How many times have you heard that argument?
Never. I never heard that.
Oh, are you kidding me?
No, I'm really not.
Oh man, you need more. You need to listen more Glenn Beck.
Yeah, I didn't. I feel like my conservative indoctrination stopped at Rush Limbaugh was the guy. Yeah, Rush Limbaugh in the car when I was a youngin, and some Sean Hannity. Okay, yeah, then some Sean Hannity, but not when it was just Hannity's show, but back when Fox News had a slight degree of integrity, and they had Hannity and Combs. I think we talked about that a little bit before.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, back Sean when they pretended to care about what other people thought, that was fun.
You had to like at least pay homage to the idea of like fair and balanced, to use it as a slogan.
Right. Dude, did they have anything else that was like fair and balanced other than Sean Hannity and Combs?
I don't know. I mean,
his first name. I don't even know.
I feel like they've always had like a couple of somewhat liberal people hanging around, but never in the spotlight like their conservative pundits were.
Yeah. It was lip service. We all knew it at the time. I remember like the amount of times I remember people making fun of Combs was just like, oh, look at this fucking idiot. It's like, oh yeah, he's so dumb. Like he was there. It's like, that must have been why he eventually left. He was probably just like, I'm so fucking sick of being made fun of all the time.
Yeah, just getting hit by that, Mack truck that is Sean Hannity on a rant every day.
Or whoever their guests are. I don't know.
Yeah.
Either way.
I feel like in terms of when it came to the Antichrist, I know that there was a ton of people that thought that Barack Obama was the Antichrist.
Yeah.
I heard that speculation quite a bit.
There's a couple of YouTube videos made about that.
A couple.
I don't think there's anyone like, so in my lifetime, the only politician I can think, because one of the things was like the New World Order, right? That's what where it's like, as you mentioned, world peace, but it didn't necessarily mean world peace. It just meant like one of the signs of the times, I remember, being a universal currency.
Yeah. Yep. That was a big one.
So we'll switch to like the euro. Everyone's like, we're probably going to switch to the euro since that's already like pretty big.
That didn't pan out.
No, I mean, there is nothing even close to a universal. Oh, no. Here we go. Crypto is the universal currency, right? That'll be it.
I hope so, because I really need that to come back.
Yeah. Yeah. How much are you down now? How much are you up?
I don't want to talk about that.
You don't want to get into your finances?
It was all going so well until it wasn't. And now
well,
I'm just, sinking slowly into the icy depths.
Don't pull out, man. Don't pull out. This is the time to get into it, and we've talked about this plenty of times, just ourselves. I'm realizing more and more as time goes on why I'm not someone who's built for financial success, because I don't take risks, I don't invest, I don't know how to. And when people are like, I can help you out with that, I'm like, oh man, that'd be awesome, definitely. They're like, yeah, give me a call sometime. I'm like, I will. I'll take you up on that. And then I don't. So that's what it means to be a person who's like just going. I mean, you're just gonna default to your salary to get you by for the rest of your life. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of just paying lip service to the idea of being like an investor in some form or another. Because same thing, like I've had a bunch of people be like, oh yeah, if you ever want want me to talk you through some things and stuff. I'm like, I kind of just want to pretend to be interested in the idea. I'm not really interested to the point of like doing research. Like I don't want to read, I just want to buy some magic stocks and make money. Like the only hope for me being wealthy someday is just to pull in enough money that it accumulates faster than I can spend it.
Yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But see, I just don't think it's for me. Like I waste my money on the dumbest. Like I spent $15 on a bag of popcorn this week.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, that's a lot of money for a bag. Would you go to the movies? I mean, that's a lot of money.
No. It was popcorn. So. You ever see that Boom Chicka Pop popcorn at the store?
Nope.
Well, around Christmas they had like this frosted sugar cookie flavor, and it was the best.
Sounds
best
terrible.
Thing there is.
That sounds awful.
No, it was great. And then they canceled it after Christmas like idiots. And so now I'm buying like a 2-year-old bag off of eBay that's probably stale. And it was only $7, but then it's like $8 shipping. And this is why I won't have money ever.
Because you spend it on popcorn. That's an interesting reason for your poverty.
I don't know. Like, I don't know how much money I spent on this shirt, but I'm sure it wasn't a reasonable amount.
Probably not.
If you guys remember, like, what was it, last year when that Ted Bundy documentary came out, that it was really good. Everybody was obsessed with it for a while. Well, at the very end,
everyone got horny for Ted Bundy for a minute.
They really did. It was like all these people talking about how handsome he was and how charming. And it's like, I don't know that that's really like, I think he would have probably given you the creeps. You just couldn't put your finger on what was wrong with him. Yeah. Like there's a difference between being that and being like charming.
Yeah. A little note. If you feel yourself intensely pitying a man, just don't help him. Like, like, oh my God.
No one has a real injury. Like, don't help anyone load their sailboat. Don't like help them put a couch in the back of their van.
If he's holding his knee with like 5 bags of groceries around him in a deserted parking lot, that's not the guy you want to help. He'll figure it out. You're not helping an angel that was secretly sent by God to make you feel better about yourself. You just need to watch out.
The only way to be safe in this world is to assume that everyone who looks injured is a necrophiliac.
Yep. There you go. I mean, I don't really know. That's how I've operated. That's why I'm here, safe and sound.
I'm almost to a point of comfort with you where I don't view you as a necrophiliac, but I'm still reviewing the evidence.
I mean, your shirt is, you can finish explaining why you're wearing the shirt you're wearing. But
oh yeah,
I'm not completely convinced that you're a safe one either.
Well, so at the end of the documentary where they're talking, the execution date is approaching and people are like tailgating and grilling hot dogs and playing catch with the old pigskin out front of the prison waiting for him to get fried. They were selling these shirts in the parking lot that said Burn Bundy Burn. And it's like a cartoon of Bundy getting electrocuted in the chair. And it says Bundy's last charge in life. And I saw the t-shirt. I'm like, man, I wonder if anybody still makes one of those. And they do. And I ordered one.
And that's you making light of the death penalty. I'm going to have to get Shane Claiborne back on here.
If Shane Claiborne sticks up for Ted Bundy, I'm definitely not letting him, mold my guns into a hoe or anything like that.
Well, you are very upset with him for doing that. You made that very clear.
I always think it's funny though, like when you're talking about serial killers, like so many serial killers, they're the most manipulative people.
Yeah.
Right? Well, maybe not the most, but they're very manipulative people.
Mega pastors, we know.
Yeah. They lie at every opportunity. And a serial killer on death row you just assume that anything he says is him trying to shift the blame away from himself. Right. And so when Ted Bundy does an interview with Dr. James Dobson, old Jimmy D, and says, all of this that I did, everything that I did was because of pornography. Like, you can't just take that and run with it. You can't just take that as gospel, like, Ted Bundy, he said that a major influence in what happened in his life was pornography. It's like, yeah, of course he did. He was looking for any way to not be responsible for the things that he did.
Are you kidding about an interview with Dobson?
No.
What the fuck?
Absolutely. He did, like, right before his execution, like, I don't know how long before, but yeah, he did an interview with Dr. Dobson.
How the fuck?
Why do I feel like I need to keep calling him doctor?
Because he's like, I mean, why do you not call Dr. Phil just Phil? I don't know. It just.
Well, I have immense respect for Dr. Phil.
Dude, Dr. Dobson did an interview with Ted Bundy.
Yeah. Okay. You can watch it on YouTube.
Okay.
Right here. Second video that pops up. Serial killer Ted Bundy describes the dangers of pornography.
No fucking way.
And then they'll one of these dudes that's murdered like 24 women, professes to be a Christian and talks about being born again and redeemed and stuff like that 2 days before they carry out this death sentence or whatever. And they're like, even in the, at the end, we all have to reckon with what we've done. And Ted saw the light.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not a compelling story. Like, you shouldn't, he's not a good mascot for you guys.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's like this tradition of picking bad mascots. I remember once when they picked Donald Trump as their mascot. It was just a baby Christian. It's like, hey, I mean, that's the guy you want to like hit your cart to. That's fine. It's weird. And you'll also lose millions of people who are just like, oh, I get it now. This is a joke.
I'm about sick of your liberal nonsense.
Yeah, it's liberal trash.
Bashing Sean Hannity, bashing, mein Führer.
That's why I got into this. I just want to be able to speak my truth, man. You can speak your truth about guns and watching serial killers burn and hating Shane Claiborne. That's fine. Speak your truth, bro. We're here together.
I love you, Shane.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I think it's probably about time to introduce our guest.
So excited.
Yeah. This was a blast. Ryan Beard. If you don't know who he is, you fucked up. Ryan Beard has 1 million followers on TikTok. I'm not really on TikTok still. We keep pretending like we're trying to figure it out and we haven't. But he's got a pretty good YouTube following. He's got a lot of followers on Instagram and he makes hilarious videos. We've shared a few of them here and there. And he, the videos that he makes, it's satirical. He'll often make fun of aspects of Christian culture. Some of the videos that we've shared was one called Boomer, I'm Not Okay. And his other one where I don't know what the name of it is, but he just kind of plays piano like he's closing out youth group, and he's talking about how premarital sex is sus. And so we've shared those 2 videos from him, and he's just absolutely hilarious. He was on America's Got Talent. That was new to me, and we get into that a little bit in the episode. And we had just a great time talking to him. Very, very funny guy.
Yeah, you should definitely follow him on whatever social media channel you use the most. There's just he does a lot of funny things kind of related to the subjects we touch on the show. Recently, with all of it, the modest is hottest stuff going on.
Yeah,
he did a song about the slogan, and it's so good. Anyway, you should just go watch it. I won't tell you about it, but we had a blast talking to Mr. Beard, and I think you're going to have a blast listening to it. So enjoy our conversation with Ryan Beard.
Hey, everybody. We are back with our guest, the incredible Mr. Ryan Beard. Ryan, I was introduced to your Instagram page and your YouTube page, and I was like, why does he call it Mr. Beard? Like, he doesn't have a beard, and it took way too long for me to realize that is actually your name.
That's my real name. Yeah. I understand that that's confusing. I've made a few jokes here and there about like why I don't have a beard, but it's mainly just because I can't grow one. Yeah. I feel like I would like to try it, but I just grow peach fuzz on my face, basically. So,
dude, I'm in that boat. Like, I let mine grow for like a week the other day and just continued to go to work, and everybody looked at me like I was insane. Like, yeah, I looked like vibes. Sam? Did you shave your pubes before your wedding, like for the inaugural bang?
Casey, I actually do not remember. You know what's funny, man? This is an interesting way to start the episode. Weigh in on this, Ryan. I don't remember the first time. I was a late bloomer to the whole. I mean, so Casey and I didn't have sex until we were married. Yeah, late bloomer to pubes. No, I got pubes at probably a normal age. I don't recall when I first trimmed them, and I don't even know if I did before getting married. I really can't remember that at all. I might have even been in my head about it and being like, are you supposed to do this? Is this a weird thing to do?
Yeah, I was never taught about whether or not I should or not. And there was one time where I like fully shaved and then I got a bunch of ingrown hairs and shit, and it was awful. And then ever since then I've just trimmed. But
yeah,
dude. I the first time I did it like 2 nights before the wedding, and that was when I learned what razor burn was. I'm like,
so you fully shaved beforehand? Yeah.
Yeah, I look like I got bird flu on my dong or something.
So you two both waited until marriage. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, God keeps his humps dry until
my parents waited until marriage as well, but I have not been married. Ooh. And I have not waited until marriage. So
oh, this is cool. We get right into the confessional.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I know, like, we've talked about this a little bit before, and I know my mom and dad, I know my parents listen to the podcast, and I'm like, this is probably how they act. They probably had their suspicions about it before. They're like, oh my God, he actually waited. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you, Ryan. I got what I came for, so we can close out. I just needed to hear that. Yeah. So thanks everybody for listening.
It's like years later before you finally realize like how insignificant that was for all the stress that it caused you at the time.
Yep. So why don't we? Okay. I want to hear, Ryan. Well, why don't we actually get into a little bit about you, other than your sex life?
That's all I really am interested in talking about.
Perfect. You came on here to brag. You're like, I lost my virginity last week. I had to tell somebody. You messaged me.
This is like the one time I can brag about my sex life. The only singular time.
So, Ryan, you grew up in the church, and I'm curious as how you got to doing church stuff. You mentioned that you had done did worship, led worship, and now you make YouTube videos where you pour hot sauce on your dick. So I'm interested in bridging this gap here with you, man.
Yeah. So I was raised non-denominational Bible church is what we called the church that we went to. So
Okay.
I was just very very straight and narrow Christian. I was also homeschooled.
Yes, dude, me too.
Oh, you were homeschooled too? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
This is gonna be fun.
We're in a very similar boat here. Yeah. So I was homeschooled up until I was like 14, and then after that I went to a Christian co-op where it was like I would go to school a few days a week and then I was at home the other 3 days a week because my mom decided that she didn't have the qualifications to teach me high school is what she said, which is why she decided to send me there.
The foreign language thing becomes a problem. Did you have someone in your homeschool co-op that taught a foreign language?
Yeah, I had a Spanish teacher there.
Me too. Homeschool co-ops, man. Those are special.
They are. It was very, the dynamics there were very weird. You would get these like the stereotypical, like very sheltered homeschooled kids. And then you would get the kids that were kind of even cringier, which were the kids who were sheltered homeschooled kids trying to rebel and be cool. And then they were like kind of even worse.
So which one were you?
I would like to think that I was somewhere in the middle. I was kind of just the class clown. That's sort of what I always was. I was always just trying to crack jokes and hopefully be friends with everybody. But there were a few times where the rebellious homeschoolers tried to pull me down the rebellious path and
make you
what
listen
does
to their rock
rebellion look
music.
like?
Well, that's the thing is these kids were just trying to do anything they possibly could to like rebel against their parents. So they were just going out and driving in their cars, like going 100 miles an hour down the road, just being like super unsafe and just fucking like, I was like, you need to calm down, man.
There's better ways to rebel. Try smoking weed.
Yeah. Just be a little more chill about your rebellion.
It is like once you, now that you've lived through that period and you look back on some of what rebellion looked like weed was the safest option for a lot of these people. Their parents should have encouraged them to smoke.
Yeah, people don't realize that mostly weed just like chills you out and, it's not really that big of a deal.
But it leads to crack cocaine, so you really gotta be careful.
Every single time it leads to crack. I can't do weed. I get paranoid when I smoke weed personally, but that's
when was
just
the
me.
first time you smoked weed? Was it in your Christian days?
Yeah, it was. So I also did a lot of theater in high school, and the first time I smoked weed was like with a group of theater kids. There was like the one family of the theater kids that was like the one who would supply weed to everyone, basically.
And did that feel super nuts that you were smoking weed at the time? Like, did you get nervous?
Yeah, it was like interestingly, I didn't get as paranoid the first time for some reason, but yeah, it definitely felt like something I shouldn't be doing. And it was definitely the thing where all the Christian homeschooled kids were like, stay away from that family. They're the ones who are the bad kids who keep giving weed to everyone.
Like, here, take this weed.
Yeah.
So, okay, all right. You were homeschooled. You did homeschool co-op. And that's what you did through high school?
Yeah, I did that through high school. But then when I was 16, I went to community college early, which is something that a lot of homeschooled kids would do.
Yeah.
So when I was 16, I started going, getting my like associate's degree. And so then 16 through 18, I like went to community college. And then 18, I moved to LA just like out of nowhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you still feeling because you don't consider yourself a Christian anymore, is that right?
No, I don't. Okay.
So when did that start happening? Were you feeling that in all through high school, or is it just kind of something you did because you were part of it? Was it not really like a big connector for you?
So yeah, I was very connected to Christianity all throughout high school. And I was the worship leader for my youth group, so I was very involved with that. But then I was also trying to get into doing like comedy and things, and I was sort of grinding up against this resistance from my parents of like, oh, you want to make sure that you're being a good influence with the jokes that you make, because if you make a joke that's too offensive, what are the people in youth group going to say? They're going to say that you're being, this joke isn't going to be a good light to the Lord and bring people to God or whatever. So I was kind of meeting up with that resistance. But when I was 18, I was on America's Got Talent, the TV show.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So that was like my first big sort of break, I guess. And then after I was on there, that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to go for it. I'm just going to move out to LA and get an agency out there and try to like make it in the entertainment industry. And I think once I moved away from home and was living on my own, that's when the faith thing kind of started to fall apart. But I think the first signs that it was falling apart was in like my last few years of high school. I would just not want to get up and go to church on Sunday morning. I would just be like, I really don't want to go. And thankfully my parents were like, you're getting old enough that you can make your own decisions. So they would just let me stay home. But there was some friction there of like, you're being a bad influence. You're saying you're the worship leader and then you're not showing up on Sunday morning. Like, what's going on here? So
I feel like that's probably like the impetus for a lot of people starting to drift from the faith, is when it's like clashing up against something that they actually love. And they have to now decide, am I actually serious about this? Or is this just a thing that I do that now is in the way of what I want,
Yeah. And I think there could have been a way that I could have, gone the Christian comedy route and tried to, juggle both at the same time. And, I don't think that necessarily making edgy jokes means that you're not a Christian or something, but that's just kind of the vibe I was getting from the very conservative Christian church that I was going to,
Yeah, for sure. It definitely means you can't be a Christian comedian. It is weird because, like, if you were like a somewhat cleanish comic, and people found out you were a Christian, they would be like, "Oh, that's amazing. We love that. We found this out about this guy who's not too bad. I mean, he swears a little bit. Like they give you a much bigger pass if they found out you were a Christian after the fact. But like people who do Christian comedy and then try to like phase out of it, or like Christian comedy is a lane. It's a thing. It's not like you could be a Christian and then a comic, and then you might get a pass by some people depending on how dirty you were. Like Pete Holmes is one of the, like, like that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
It's like not too bad, but it is funny, the Christian comedy route thing though, because it's generally like not funny unless you're a Christian.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I haven't gone back and watched much Christian comedy since I've not been a Christian, so maybe I wouldn't enjoy the things that I did enjoy back when I was in high school, but I will say I think Christian comedy can be one of the most difficult routes that you can choose for yourself, because you have put this hyper magnifying glass on yourself identifying as a Christian comedian. Because I have a Christian comedian friend named Jaron, and he's told me all these stories about how he'll make a joke that's a little bit on the line, and then he'll get 100 Facebook messages from Karens being like, I thought you said you were a Christian comedian. What is this joke that you just made? He like constantly deals with that. So I definitely think that there's some truth to just doing what you want and then maybe slipping in that you're a Christian. Like I think maybe like Chris Pratt, has done that, where he just kind of did whatever and then, says, oh, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and like a comedic genius like Mark Lowry is kind of a once in a generation thing. So, I mean, it's not really a bar you can set for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I don't
I
know if I know Mark Lowry.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
That was an ironic statement.
Oh, it's Mark Lowry not funny?
I remember junior high me thinking he wasn't funny, so I can't imagine what me now would think of his comedy.
My example of what I thought was funny was like Tim Hawkins. Have you ever heard of Tim Hawkins? He was a Christian comedian that I liked. Yeah.
I like Bill Cosby.
Yeah, Bill Cosby. Yeah, great. No issues with him.
It wasn't at the time. I was like, he got a pass. He got the Christian comedian pass.
So my company, I can't remember if I've told this story on here, so I'll give you the abridged version. But like, my company is super conservative, like prays at meetings and stuff like that. Says the Pledge of Allegiance before we start. And we have like this big convention every year, and there's always like a speaker or something that they hire to come in. Well, one year they wanted to hire a comedian. They decided to go with a Christian comedian. They thought they were hiring Tim Hawkins, but they actually hired a guy named Tim Wilson. And he's like, he was on Bob and Tom all the time, but he's like a real rough around the edges, like Roadhouse comedian that made funny songs and stuff. And
was he
no
not
idea.
a Christian?
No. This guy shows up, and it sounds like comedians hate doing these corporate gigs anyways.
Yeah.
But he showed up and they're like, "Oh, well, do you have clean material? You do, right?" And he's like, "No." Dude, he did like 45 minutes to a crowd that barely cracked a smile.
Oh no. I can't imagine being in that dude's shoes. Oh, that would suck so much that you're stuck suffering just because people hired the wrong guy. Like, that would be awful.
Oh yeah, people walked out. It was funny. It was just like, it was the worst environment for it.
Yeah.
You're the only one laughing in the corner, Casey. Is that what it was?
Yeah, there was like a handful of the non-super religious people there that were laughing, but yeah, everybody else was scowling.
I think that might be my personal nightmare. Like, performing to a crowd that isn't laughing is like the worst thing for a comedian.
Now, do you do stand-up as well?
I haven't done much of it. I did stand-up, so I did like musical comedy, playing like a funny song on America's Got Talent. But that's one of like the few times that I've really done that sort of thing. So I really want to get into doing it more. But I haven't done much of live comedy. Definitely in the next year, as things start opening up, I want to start stepping into that world more, especially because I've grown somewhat of an audience. And for me, I think it takes a lot of the pressure off if, you know, you're performing and the audience already knows who you are and they already know your style and they already like you, you know, rather than just going to open mic nights where you're just have a crowd of random people and who the fuck knows if they're going to enjoy it or not. So,
yeah, I've done a little bit of open mic night stuff and it has not gone well.
Yeah,
it's been real rough.
I'm telling you, that's one of the worst feelings is just making a joke you think is funny and getting no response. Like,
yeah, that is, I mean, it's uncomfortable when that happens just amongst, you know, people that are acquaintances. You throw something out there thinking you're going to be a hit and you're like okay,
a Mark Lowry reference.
Yeah,
the classic Mark Lowry reference.
Yeah. You're like, I'm just not going to even try to make friends with any of these people because this was the worst first impression of all time.
Dude, so what did your parents think as you started to kind of go your own direction?
Interestingly enough, I was getting more and more friction and sort of pushback as I was going my own way. But then once I sort of came out to them that I wasn't a Christian anymore, the pushback got a lot less because now I wasn't like being a bad example for the faith, you know, from their perspective. Now I'm someone who's not in the faith, so they didn't feel as conflicted by it. I will say that they still give me pushback whenever I make very sexual jokes. That to them is like where
do we have the same parents?
I understand as well that it's uncomfortable to hear that as the parent of someone, just hearing them talk about that sort of thing. So I can't blame them too much as far as that goes. But thankfully they've been really supportive.
That's nice. I mean, I imagine that makes it a lot easier. I feel like with a lot of people who drift out of it. I mean, one of the things we've like just heard so many times from so many people. And I mean, Casey's kind of in the boat too, where it's like people who shift out, they never have that conversation with their parents. They're like, that comes with so much anxiety. There's so much like pressure on them to like, because I mean, I guess some of it has to do with them just not wanting to disappoint their parents. Some of it has to do with like, no one ever brings it up because the parents don't really want to hear it. And it creates a lot of discomfort and friction for, I mean, the amount of people that I'm realizing are going through that's pretty wild.
That's interesting. I didn't know that there was a common thing of just never bringing up the topic.
Really?
My parents are treating it like they treated sex education.
Yeah.
You just don't ask, don't tell.
Like if we just pretend it's not real, maybe he'll just never have sex.
Yeah, I had no sex ed class in high school or anything. I don't think I've ever taken a sex ed class.
Yeah, homeschool co-ops don't usually contract somebody for that.
Yeah. The only sex ed I got was from my youth group saying don't have it. That's pretty much it.
Dude, so moving to LA, was that like a complete culture shock? I mean, where are you originally from?
I'm from Kansas originally, so yes, a
Yeah.
very, very, very big culture shock for sure.
What part of Kansas?
Kansas City.
Okay. I'm in Wichita.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Wichita's even a little bit more, would be probably even more of a culture shock from going to LA.
We're bumpkins for sure. But I do have an apartment in Overland Park.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's right 10 minutes from me.
There we go.
You guys could have been, but you guys could have almost been in the same. Oh, you weren't there as a kid, Casey. I was gonna say, I'm surprised you guys didn't run into each other in your Christian adventures.
Yeah, it's
Right.
only an enormous city.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes people don't realize that Kansas City and Kansas is still pretty big. You know, it's not just we know every single one of our neighbors, you know.
Yeah. But LA had to be like, did you have any contacts there, or did you just kind of like, I'm going and I'll figure it out?
So I actually got I was basically just emailing a bunch of agencies out in LA like, hey, I was just on America's Got Talent, do you want to represent me? And I actually got an agency that was interested and agreed to sign me. So that was kind of the thing. I was like, okay, I got an agency that's interested. So then I moved out there and got a job working at a restaurant, and then unfortunately the opportunities from that were pretty dry. I didn't really get many auditions that I was sent out to. Nothing really happened from that. So then I ended up moving back home after about a year and a half or so, because it wasn't what I hoped it would be. I think that is a thing that happens a lot with people who, chase the dream of going to LA and then realize, oh, actually, I'm not just going to instantly get a huge role in a TV show and then become super famous,
Yeah, it seems like such a hard place to survive. Just like the cost of living and just the amount of people that are there trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was difficult, but yeah, that was definitely when I think when I was out in LA the first time was when I fully fell away from the faith. I had my parents being like, you should find a church out there, because if you find a church, then you'll have like a good supportive environment of people, people who can help you. And I definitely agree with, sometimes churches can be a place to meet friends and find like-minded people. But I tried visiting one church and I was just like, I'm just really not feeling this. I really don't think that this is right for me. And then around then is sort of when I decided. But interestingly enough, there's another part of the story I haven't told. So when I was still living in Kansas City, like right before I moved out, I met my girlfriend on the internet.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend, she lives in Australia, which definitely my family thought that she was fake when I first mentioned her to them. So she is she's an atheist. And so as I'm moving out to LA on my own, I'm definitely talking to her and having conversations where we're discussing faith and things, and she's questioning why I believe the things that I do, and then I'm realizing, well, yeah, why do I believe the things that I do? I'm not exactly sure as far as that goes. So that is kind of talking with her is when I realized that I didn't really believe it anymore. And we have actually been dating now for over 4 years. So,
there you go.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's
so
funny,
everything
like
ended up working out.
how as you start to as doubt starts to kind of creep in, and you get less committed to the faith as a whole, you really start to scratch your head at certain ideas that you're like, do I have the conviction to stand by this anymore? The one we always is like a guy getting eaten by a fish and then getting spit up like a week later.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know about you, but like my upbringing was, the Bible is 100% true, exactly how it's written. It is the inerrant word of God. To question one thing is to throw the whole Bible away.
Yep. Yeah,
And
I had that exact same thing. And that's why I never really had much of a transition into like being a progressive Christian, which, a lot of people in LA would be more like progressive Christians. But because I was pounded so hard with that idea of like, you have to accept all of it or none of it, I was just like, well, I don't accept all of it, so I guess I accept none of it. And then like that kind of
you're like, shit.
Dude, they set you up for it.
Yeah.
It's like you guys really set the table for me to be to leave.
To just leave right away. Yeah. Like I could have had a slow, maybe been a progressive Christian, but no, I was like, well, I guess I'm done with it. So
it's funny. It's like the difference between like Sam and me is like Sam has such a more nuanced perspective on Christianity, and I feel like you have a real you really identify with a lot of the ideals and the person of Jesus and all this stuff. And like for me, it was just like a list of rules that I was paranoid about. And then when finally I was like, I don't know about this part. Like, I don't know about all of it. On to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of the same. I mean, I definitely, a lot of the principles that I was taught growing up, I definitely still agree with. Like, I like the part in the Bible of like treat other people with love and, love your neighbor as yourself and try and, care for the poor and make the world a better place and all those sorts of things. Like, I definitely like those teachings from Jesus. But as far as, I think for me, what really got to me was looking at certain Old Testament passages, like the one describing how to sell your daughter into slavery and the one saying stone people to death if you find two men having sex with each other, or the ones where Jesus said, go in and murder every man, woman, and child in this city. I think those were like the ones where I was like, yeah, I don't think that this book came from a God. I think it probably was written by men trying to justify the bad things that they want to do. So
I mean, I guess if you're gonna split hairs.
Yeah. Well, it's funny is like the amount of effort that goes into trying to make that work is I just don't it's lost on me at this point, because I mean I used to try to make that work, like, well, that's because, and then you would kind of get into this like long-winded explanation of why God was different then, and you're like, well, but then God doesn't change, and you're like, well, he didn't change, but like circumstances did, I guess, I don't know, and then you like really start pedaling back, and it's like so stressful to have to like have an entire system of belief that's built on trying to explain why it's not wrong, as opposed to like
yeah, genocide.
Yeah, I feel like at the end of the day, you just kind of have to, you hit the brick wall of just, I'm a human and I don't understand, and God is God and God has the, has the knowledge. So I can't fully understand what God says,
which is funny. Comforting. The only time I ever experienced people defaulting to the concept of mystery is like when they just couldn't answer a question about a certain criticism. They're like, well, God's a mystery. And you're like, well, you didn't say that the past 4 hours when you explained to me, why the earth is 6,000 years old and carbon dating doesn't work. But when it comes to, I don't know, genocide, all of a sudden God's a mystery. This is getting a little strange.
You don't seem to think God's a mystery when you discuss like homosexuality. There you think it's pretty set in stone,
Right. Yeah, we all had the similar experience with that.
So where are you guys at, like, currently, belief wise? Are you fully detransitioned from the church, or?
I'm out completely. I think of myself as like an apathetic agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, but I mean, it depends on who you ask. We go back to it from time to time. We had this guy on the podcast who was like just a conservative evangelical type, just have a conversation with him. He had reached out to us, and he was a nice guy, and we're like, this could be a fun conversation to just get into it with someone who kind of represents the old ideologies. And
mm-hmm.
I put him into a fun position where after we had our conversation for about an hour and a half, I was like, so based on any the things that I've said, like, do I count? Am I a Christian? He's like, I mean, I have to say no. I don't think you are. And I was like, God damn it. But it's funny. I still actually do.
Isn't that a whole thing that you're not supposed to determine whether or not someone's a Christian?
But they say that, but when you, I wish I could recall all the, I mean, to rehash everything, I guess is a bit much, but when you denounce any of the dogmatism that they're coming from, and, you don't think hell exists, and that you don't think people need to be Christian or need to care about it at all. Like when you stop making any sort of rules for anybody else, and it's just not, for me, it was just like a personal choice where I had the language. I generally feel like a somewhat spiritual person. Most of the time I'm not, but occasionally I feel like I have experiences that I would identify as spiritual. Usually they're not anything associated with Christianity or Christian things, but I do still go. I still participate in like a small church, and to me it's just for me this is like something that I can operate in well. I mean, I do believe in, I guess, some of the tenets. I don't know. I guess I don't know what I believe about it. It just works for me. It's the easiest way to put it. I don't. If you're going to ask me to be dogmatic about whether or not the certain miracles happened or like Jesus rose from the dead and things like that, I'm like, I don't know. No one really knows any of that, but like probably. No, I don't know. I just don't
he has
think
all
about
the
it.
trappings of a Christian. Just he voted for Biden, so he doesn't get to be in the club.
Yeah.
So you're not a real, yeah. So there you can tell you're not a real Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think one of the biggest things that I always had an issue with is this whole idea that you have to have everything nailed down. You have to know exactly what you believe, and you have to be able to say, I know that this is what happened, and then I know this is what happened, and I know this is because I wasn't
Yeah.
there. I have no idea. All I can go off of is, either the Bible or what historians say. So yeah.
It's like you can't have like you in the super conservative circles like I was from. It's like it's not enough to just claim the title. Like you have to be an apologist. You have to like
Right.
learn the arguments in case someone like challenges a notion that you should be able to quote scripture and defend whatever the idea is,
And
Yeah.
I got super into that stuff. I was a big apologetics guy for a bit. Got a Bible degree for God's sake. So it's like I thought about that a lot. Did you know? Did you ever read any of the apologetics books, like the big ones, like Lee Strobel and stuff like that, Ryan?
I never quite got to that level, but I did. I did take a debate class when I was at my Christian school, and they made us debate. Is evolution real? Is climate change real? Or I think we did have a debate that was just like try to debate Christianity or atheism, and then we had to sort of go through I know they made us watch. I think it was like Ken Ham versus Bill Nye or something. There was like a big debate that they did.
Yeah, that was the master debate.
Yeah.
Now, being that like music is obviously a big part of your life, like were you into Christian music or were you kind of always that wasn't like a big thing for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was only allowed to listen to Christian music at the beginning, and then I like slowly branched into checking out other music. But I still have a connection to certain Christian artists, like Reliant K, I think is one of my favorite artists. I love their music, and I still to this day, I've seen them put out statements about things that I definitely agree with. So I don't necessarily. I'll still listen to Christian music from time to time, but yeah, I definitely made that journey of only being allowed to listen to Christian music and then slowly listening to a few other artists and then eventually just listening to whatever. So
Reliant K is just really good. I think
Yeah.
I'm 100% with you on that. I'm following I didn't listen to the like Christian music when I was in high school very much. So when they were like doing their earlier albums, I didn't know them. I ended up going back to them and enjoyed them, but they were one of those Christian bands that like didn't feel beholden to making youth group kids clap, I guess.
Yeah.
So they got like good, like their music stayed good. It got a lot more mature. Their lyrical content was always on like just I thought fantastic. So I'm totally
Yeah, it
with you on
definitely
Reliant K,
wasn't.
man.
It wasn't like how can we get these buzzwords in the song so that it'll that we can perform at Winter Jam or whatever.
What's some other ones?
I really like Switchfoot. Switchfoot's good. Reliant K, Switchfoot. I always really liked David Crowder's music.
Oh yeah.
He had some good stuff. Trying to think. Oh, Gunger. I loved Gunger was actually a band that kind of helped me move away from Christianity because they started as a very conservative Christian group, and now they're very, very progressive. And I don't even know if they consider themselves Christian anymore. But it was interesting. That was a band that they sort of dealt with being ostracized from the Christian community because of certain things that they said and that they believed certain ways. And yeah, so I think those were definitely artists that I still enjoy.
I haven't actually heard of that one.
Really?
Gungor, yeah, you should check them out. They are very diverse in their like musical styles, and they became kind of weird and avant-garde as they went on in their musical journey. As far so, do you know Gungor, Sam? Have you heard their music before?
I used to. Michael Gungor did a podcast for a while. I don't know if he still does it. I don't know. It's called The Liturgists.
Yeah, I listened to that as well.
Okay, right. So it's like that was one of those that came kind of around that time. A bunch of like I feel like within a certain like 3-year span, a lot of progressive Christian pod. It's like they realized that was the platform for them. Of course, they don't get a voice anywhere else. But as podcasting blew up, progressive Christians took to that. And I mean, there's plenty of conservative Christian podcasts. Every mega church puts their sermons out as a podcast. So if you want to listen to Stephen Furtick just rant and rave, then he's available.
Yeah.
But
that sounds great.
So as far as
go ahead.
I was just going to ask, as far as like what he was saying about the whole like all the Bible has to be true or none of it is true. Where do you fall on that? Like that sort of belief? Like you don't agree with that necessarily?
Yeah, no, not at all. I don't. I mean, it doesn't. Calling it true or not true, I think is a weird way to put it. I think it's just like I think depending on what you're reading, and I mean, it's all different books, different authors, different reasons they were written. So it just gets a little bit convoluted to say true or not, because I don't think even most of the Old Testament, I don't think anyone wrote it with the intention of being true. And you can see where different, like the First and Second Chronicles, were you one of those kids that read the whole Bible? Did you read it much?
I didn't read the whole Bible, but I did. I was one of those kids who they would tell to read the Bible, and then I wouldn't as much as they wanted me to. I know the gist of the different books and who wrote them and all that. Paul wrote a bunch of the New Testament.
Right. So like
that's a good
Chronicles,
start.
That's a great thing. Which ones did Jesus write? Well, I forget what books Jesus wrote. Did he write any of them?
All of them, divine inspiration.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, to
Is
trick
that a
me.
trick question?
Yeah.
I think no. Jesus just wrote Song of Solomon. That was the one that Jesus wrote.
The only one directly authored by him was the one that's like Christian Kama Sutra.
Yeah.
He never had sex. The guy just needed an outlet, for Christ's sake. For his sake. Sorry. Excuse me.
Just remember reading like King James Version Song of Solomon and feeling like it was kind of dangerous.
Yeah. Like, ooh, I guess this does get to be in the Bible, but it feels like it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Like your breasts are like 2 ferns. It does say breasts, so there's.
It says something about the discharge of donkeys at some point, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Or
What is? Yeah,
What?
It's you don't know that one?
No. I probably didn't catch discharge at that age. I was like,
yeah,
whose emissions are like that of a donkey or something like that.
Yeah.
I gotta reread Song of Solomon now.
It's in the passage where they're slut shaming somebody. I forget who, but
oh yeah, of course.
Dude, how big a load does a donkey emit?
It's gotta check out Song of Solomon to find out.
They
how
give
many
it to you in cubits?
Oh man, he doth emit a furlong.
Everybody knows cubits.
Wasn't cubits like used to with like Noah's Ark or something?
Yeah,
like to measure Noah's Ark. Yeah,
you would use
totally
1 cubit to
useless
artificially inseminate a horse.
Yeah.
No, I do think that is pretty accurate. I think you got to get in there because they make those shoulder length gloves.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like I think I saw Johnny Knoxville do that.
Yeah. I'll never forget the time that we'll just detour a little bit more. What was the Tom Green movie? Did he do a road trip or Freddie got fingered?
Freddie got fingered, right?
so I never watched those like filthy movies, but I remember being at my grandmother's house once, and she had I would sleep in the living room, me and my brother, and so we would always watch the movies we weren't supposed to that were on TV, and because they would have like HBO or something, and so it was some Tom Green movie, and I'm thinking like, oh, I'm gonna watch this because it's funny. I'm not allowed to watch Tom Green stuff, and I remember being like disgusted at the age I was when I watched it because I don't know anything other than like what I saw when I changed it, but Tom Green was like flopping a horse's dick around and just laughing his ass off, and I'm like, what? This isn't what I thought I was gonna watch. I thought I was gonna go to hell because I just watched Bestiality and I'm concerned about my soul for a little bit.
Why am I hard?
Some of those movies are a little bit fucked up. Those comedies from like the 2000s.
Yeah,
dude, that's a great question. What was a movie or an album that was like considered suspect? Like you wanted to see it, but you weren't allowed to.
Oh God. Well, I remember really wanting to watch. I remember really wanting to watch Lord of the Rings, but that wasn't. I mean, that one wasn't that bad, but that was just something that I was like, please, Mom and Dad, please let me watch Lord of the Rings.
They wouldn't let you watch Lord of the Rings?
No. Well, I think once I turned like 14, they did, but ever since I was a kid, I had heard about it, and it was this majestic movie that I wanted to watch so bad.
They're like, at the age of 14, you'll be ready to process this material.
We will sit you down, and this is the time, son. But I'm trying to remember if there was like a sexual thing, or I mean, definitely like finding out about porn was a weird thing.
Did you ever get caught watching porn?
Yeah, sort of. I definitely had some very awkward.
It was talking about
the worst.
It was more the them looking through my search history and finding like, that's
okay. So that's the better option. It's not like you got caught mid.
Never mid. Yeah.
Sam and I are too old, man. Like back when we were young go-hards, like the internet was so bad that like you would click the back button and it was a 20-second reloading process. And if you panicked and you hit it again and again and again, it added like 10 seconds every time you clicked it. So eventually you just had to like headbutt the screen.
You just either had to accept your fate or destroy your computer. Those are the two options.
I was one of the most nervous kids of all time. So like that was like a scary thing for me to do. Like, and I was homeschooled, my mom's a stay-at-home mom. Like that wasn't something you really got a lot of opportunities to, but like when you did, there was like, you're like, oh, like your mom goes and she's not gonna be bad for an hour. So you type boobs into the search bar real quick. Yeah. You're like 14, 15 years old. And then, God, this memory just came flooding back when you talked about smashing your face into the screen. And then like, you're like, I guess I'll just click it. Like obviously all the options come. There's no like pictures or anything. You're just like, what? I guess I'll just click the first one that shows up. Yeah, I know, because that's how the internet works. Well, so then it brings you to the screen, and then like 10 million pop-ups just go pop, and they don't stop. And you're like, they're coming up fast, and you can click the X's, and you're like, I haven't even seen boobs yet. Like, and then, but you're just
not worth it.
Inundated, and then I hear like the garage reopened because my mom forgot something. She's coming back, and I'm like saying, trying to like click at it, and then you just like hit the power button, and she comes in right when the screen shuts off. You're like, computer froze.
You had to chew through the power cord like a rat.
Now that we're talking about it, I actually remember. So my parents had like a blocking software on the computer so that you couldn't just search for whatever.
Of course.
So the first times that I was trying to find stuff was by searching for things on Wikipedia. I would like search for like nudity on Wikipedia, and then a picture would pop up. So that was like my first, because Wikipedia wasn't blocked. So
that did you ask Jeeves about vagina? Yeah, no, it's funny how like, dude, like teenage boys are the most creative at finding, like, detectives, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
I think
before the internet, it was like, oh, we got, like, when you guys buy a crappy old computer, they would give you, like, these, like, entry-level versions of programs, you know, on a CD.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd always give you an encyclopedia. So I remember, like, we had Encarta 95 on our crappy old computer.
God, that's right.
Yeah, and so I just remember, like tirelessly searching through Encarta 95 to find, like, Renaissance paintings.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And then, like, printing, I printed one. And you remember, like, trying to print remember, like, in 1998 trying to print a picture?
Yeah,
and it's just like,
meh.
yeah, it was like a 30-second delay, and then it would make one bar. It would go,
yeah,
and then it would stay. And yeah,
and
so
like,
I had like a
Mom and
nervous
Dad
30 minutes.
I hope they won't find my Renaissance paintings, please.
I had a friend that did that. He tried to print a picture of a topless woman, and it didn't print right away. Something was up, and then it ended up printing later, and the computer was his parents' bedroom. So they just found the picture sitting in the printer like 3 hours later.
Oh no. But yeah, I definitely believe that, like, if you try to force kids not to do something, they're gonna, like, find a way to get around it. That's why I think, like, just having open communication is so much better.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you're not gonna stifle a teenage boy's disgusting impulses. And, like, if you remove all normal material, they're gonna find something that's gonna be weird and scary.
It's gonna be weird, yeah. Absolutely.
And then they're gonna be like, "Oh, I didn't know I was into this," and then you're gonna end up with some weird, kinky, post-pubescent boy living in your house.
Dude,
Exactly.
ruined forever. Like, that's the guy that messages April about, like, photoshopping her into a picture where she's at 80 feet tall and stomping on him.
It's like, I thought that was completely normal. That's all I could find on the internet. So.
Yeah, right. It seems like what everyone was into. The message board on that website.
On the message
was, like,
board
active.
I found, yeah.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Who thought we were going to end up talking about all the weird habits of boys going through puberty here?
That's definitely something I haven't. Yeah, it's a memory that I try to keep repressed for the most part. So thank you for forcing me to relive all that.
Yeah, those were terrible times.
Being like that, you led the worship. Like, that was, so I was in a worship band for a minute, and, like, as bland and tame as all of us were, not as a band, but as people, like, there was always something that was controversial that we did. Like, we played a song in a certain way and people would get upset and stuff. Like, did you ever get in trouble for, like, pushing the envelope somehow as a worship leader?
Well, were you in a church where they were like, rock music is not a good thing, or like how conservative was it?
Like, very conservative. Like, people got mad when they started, like, putting the lyrics to the songs up on the overhead.
Why?
People got mad. They were like, you know, in church you sing out of a hymnal, and this is, you know, they, like, there was people that refused to look up at it, and they would just sit there with their hymnal while it was on the wall.
I wish they turned around instead.
It's just this endless mentality of everything the way it is always better than any possible improvement that we could make to something. Like, and it's just so tiring.
Yeah,
100%.
But yeah, speaking of Gungor before, I loved playing Gungor music when I was leading worship. And then one day the pastor had to come to me and be like, yeah, so Michael Gungor recently said something that was very controversial, so you're not going to be allowed to play his songs anymore in youth group. I was like, what? I don't... Me playing a song doesn't mean I'm endorsing everything that Gungor has ever said, but I guess that's he was afraid that if I play a Gungor song, then I was going to get a parent who's like, oh, how are they playing music from this heathen, you know?
It's funny because, like, it's like it's like say someone has a Christian band, and then, someone goes off and does like a solo thing and it's not Christian anymore. Like, we can't listen to that old Christian band now because it's like the content of the music didn't change. It's the exact same. I find that so strange.
Christians are the original cancel culture instigators.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. It's the exact, and it's so funny that so many of them complain about cancel culture now that it's affecting them, but they were the ones who were pushing it back in the day. Like, but yeah, that is an interesting conversation to be had of can you separate the art from the artist? And I don't know if there's really like a clear answer on that.
Depends on what they did,
Going back to Bill Cosby.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not going to be watching the Cosby Show anytime soon, but
no, there's a line you can cross for sure, and Cosby crossed it, and then that total lack of remorse and sociopathy that went along with it didn't help. So.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I feel like there's certain things that the Christian community, like the conservative Christian community, will forgive, and others that they won't. And they will not forgive you for making a statement like a pro-choice statement,
No.
But like,
they will forgive you for getting peed on by a bunch of Russian prostitutes while visiting food.
Yeah, exactly.
Go with a little simpler. Like, if you got caught on tape saying the N-word, like, they'll probably forgive you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I keep wondering, like, with Jerry Falwell Jr., like, because it has such a discomfort with any type of sexual material. Like, he's like in the room watching a young stud like bang his wife, which has to upset them to their core. Will they forgive him for that if he's just Republican enough? I don't know.
I guess so. Yeah,
they did. He's fine.
He's fine.
Jerry Jr. Yeah, everyone's okay with him.
Oh. Yeah, that is definitely something that I always found interesting. Of like, when do people say that we should extend God's forgiveness, and when is it? I think it's anytime someone says something that like threatens the entire faith or threatens something that we think that we believe in. That's like when they won't do forgiveness. But it kind of depends.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. That's a great point. If it's anything regarding the faith or goes contrary to the status quo of their beliefs, but if it's like, look, he said, like Casey mentioned the N-word, it's like, oh, we just said it one time, it was an accident, what's the big deal? It's like, well, racism's a big deal
in your brain. That's the big deal.
But it's not
the fact that's in your vocabulary is an issue. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on there. Okay, Ryan, I want to jump into a little bit more of like your work and what you're doing and why, and like kind of, I know you mentioned you went to LA and that didn't really work out. You moved back home, but I want to talk about how you got into kind of doing your form of comedy and how, like, what started that? What was like one of the first, like, what was the first thing that made you think this is the lane that I'm picking? I'm sure America's Got Talent, jumping off of that experience.
Yeah. America's Got Talent was like the first thing. And then, I just got very frustrated with LA because I wasn't, things weren't going the way that I wanted them to. And I think one of the things I really hated about being in LA was you always felt like kind of a prop in every, it's like this huge machine and you're just one cog in it and you have to play your part and do your thing. And then you're done. Which there's nothing wrong with that. But as a creative person, I definitely was feeling like, oh, I want to be able to kind of have creative control over the whole process, which is why I definitely gravitated towards making things for YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, because when I do that, I get to be the writer, I get to be the director, the cinematographer, I get to, get better at acting. And that's just really fulfilling to me that I have like full creative control over everything. But I would say definitely like Bo Burnham was one of my biggest inspirations.
Sure,
starting out, I love Bo Burnham and this guy named Tim Minchin. They're two musical comedians, and I'd say like those guys, and then different people who I'd watch on YouTube, different comedy things, sort of informed me starting out doing that. But yeah, it was tough for about 3 years or so. I wasn't having much success. You go through this big high of being on America's Got Talent, and you gain 4,000 followers overnight, and you're like, wow, this is crazy, this is awesome. And then just for the next 3 years, it just slowly goes down because
oh no.
Yeah,
people unfollowed you? I didn't know people.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah,
no.
yeah. That's the worst. That's the worst feeling. Is I got to like 4,500 followers on Instagram, and then every time I would post on Instagram, I would lose like 20 followers. So it was like the opposite of. It just feels like your career is moving backwards, and that's the hardest feeling that you don't necessarily hear people talk about, because you just hear about the success stories, but you don't hear about the person who's on TV one time and then has to deal with the next 3 years of slowly going in reverse. But yeah, thankfully I a few years ago started getting some success on TikTok. That's where I like first started gaining success again. And I was working in a restaurant that I wasn't like really loving the environment there. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to start making a video every single day, and I'm just going to put it on TikTok. And I feel like there's some capabilities for growing on here by putting out like high quality content, because there aren't many people putting a lot of effort into their videos on TikTok. And then thankfully that started snowballing eventually. And then, for the last 2 years, I've just been making funny videos for the internet, which has been really fun.
Dude, so, like, were you in LA or in Kansas City again when you were like working at the restaurant and stuff?
Okay, so I worked. I moved from LA back to Kansas, and then once I was in Kansas, I got a job in like a fine dining restaurant, which I was like, see, I'm like moving up in the hierarchy of restaurants. But then you realize like now you're just having to deal with a bunch of snobby rich people, who shit on you and don't believe that you deserve the money that you get from them. So I was working in this fine dining restaurant, and then the restaurant said, we're opening up a new location in LA. So I was like, oh, okay. Maybe I could try LA again. So I moved out to LA when they opened up the new location, and then I hated it there. So then I moved back home a second time. So I've moved to LA and back twice now. But yeah, so I was working in this restaurant in LA. I was not enjoying it. It was in like the heart of Beverly Hills, and I thought it was going to be awesome because I was going to be making more money, but really it was just like dealing with the snobbiest of the snobby people in the entire country. And I was actually getting a lot more people in LA who would like not leave me tips than in Kansas, which I was kind of surprised by. Like, I thought, LA's this liberal city that should at least understand that people need to be paid properly. But nope. Once you get to like the 1%, a lot of them are just like, see you as a non-human, like you're just there to serve them food, and they don't want to tip you. So
did you ever did anyone famous ever come in where you got to like spit on their dinner?
Well, I would spit on everyone's dinner. So
okay,
It's just like
yeah. No, I did not ever do that. I'm trying to remember. We had a few famous people come in. John Cena came in a bunch of times.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that was cool seeing John Cena. He seemed like he was really chill and laid back.
He seems like there was this tipper.
Yeah.
Just
but there
the
was
tipper,
this
but...
yeah, just the tip. But there was this guy who's like a big famous plastic surgeon in LA who came into the restaurant, and then I had to serve him and his whole family, and he was just so rude. He was like, this was horrible service because as they brought the food out to us, they didn't do it in the correct order. Like he expected everything to be exactly perfect. And yeah, so
awful.
At that point I was just like, this is the worst. I need to get out of here.
Did he offer all the waitresses boob jobs?
I feel like he would have, honestly.
He's like, here's my card, honey. You look like you could use a bigger pair.
Yeah, you could use some. I feel like, oh yeah. And we had this like extra fancy part of the restaurant, which was like this secret bar that like was supposed to be for just like celebrities and stuff. But apparently the people who went in there were being real scumbags to the waitresses and stuff. And it's just like,
go figure.
Yeah. Not super surprising. But yeah, once you definitely glimpse like the the life of the super rich people living in LA, you definitely are like, I do not want to be a part of this.
It's funny, like so many of the podcasts I listen to on a regular basis are comedians, and they all lived in LA, and now they're all leaving.
Yeah.
And now that they're officially like leaving the place, they are just like taking a dump on all of that. Like they just hated it, but they put up with it because it was like, this is where you do this thing that I do, and I have to put up with this.
Sometimes you feel like it's where you got to be because everyone else is here, and that's where you can audition for roles or whatever. But yeah.
Did you like try to do some acting stuff while you were there too?
I'm trying to remember. The second time I went out, I was like trying to find an agency, but I don't think I ever really found a new agency the second time because I was so enveloped in like working at this fancy restaurant, and then I was getting home feeling exhausted from the restaurant, and I'm like, my life is I want to be an entertainer, not to be a server in a fancy restaurant. So
okay, so did you know that they're introducing Luciferian symbols into movies subliminally? People don't even know.
I've heard about it so many times that I'm surprised that people don't know at this point.
Yeah, a family member sent me one of those videos, like not that long, maybe a year ago.
Yeah, was it the one about Hillary Clinton eating babies or whatever?
Oh, well, I mean, one of them, yeah.
Yeah.
One of those erotic fan fictions.
Yeah.
So when Ryan, after you drifted away from everything, did you have to turn in your you were in it all through high school, so I imagine they asked for your baptism card back. Did that happen?
I had to do the unbaptism where they like dry you off and you're like, you are now you have been unbaptized.
They just drown you in the tank in front of the congregation.
No, they throw you down in an empty tank.
They dip you in a pool, and they all just dry you off with a bunch of towels, and they're like, "We unbaptize you in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ."
You need like a whole channel on your social media that's just like all making fun of like Midwest Christian values.
Yeah. Well, I still like live with my parents, so those types of jokes are still kind of. I did make it was the video that you guys saw of me was me making fun of like being a Gen Z pastor or something. You said that's the
one where we loved it. That was how I first got introduced to you. Casey sent that to me of you. It was like you addressing a youth group about how premarital sex is sus.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
That's so good.
But I definitely experienced that of the youth pastors trying to be hip with whatever the new phrase is, and then just being so cringy about it.
That's the vibe of it too, like that soft voice over music. Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's like I heard it. I was like, there's no way this guy didn't grow up in church. You don't make that unless you grew up in church.
Well, I had been that guy. I had been the guy who was playing on the piano and praying, and so I had firsthand experience from it.
The other one I fell in love with was I'm boomer, I'm not okay. How'd your parents feel about that as boomers?
They actually weren't too bad about that one.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my parents I consider my parents like very logical, caring people. Like they're conservatives, but they like refuse to vote for Trump, and they were very.
That's great.
They were very logical about the coronavirus. They weren't throwing around any conspiracy theories or anything. We were very safe as far as that goes. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I've been very blessed that I think my parents are like my dad is doing this thing at his university, trying to, help like Black students get further in the program and everything, which I think is really cool. And so, definitely they're good people in my opinion. It's just sometimes they run into this is just what I believe because it's what I think the Bible tells me I have to believe, and then
that's what's hard coming from our background is I feel like there's a real if you didn't come from that background, it's easy to pick an issue that seems black and white to you and to make statements like, anyone who believes this is a piece of garbage and you should disregard them. You should just cut them out of your life. And when you come from our background, you're like, well, for one, I used to think that. And it wasn't that long ago.
Mhm.
Like, I had a lot of dumb ideas, and two, like, I know people who think that still, and they're not bad people. They're just stuck. Like, they're stuck in this ideology and they can't break out, because it's to break out on this idea is to challenge their entire worldview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My I think my parents would be okay with me talking about this a little bit, but my dad has he has like a disease that's sort of a ongoing disease that he's not going to heal from. So definitely having the solace of knowing that this pain is temporary and I'm going to go somewhere where, all the pain is going to be taken away and God is going to reward me for the fact that I'm being so strong through this right now. It's like, I feel like that's the beautiful part of religion. So for me to turn around and be like, your religion's bullshit, Dad, is like, I'm in a privileged position where I'm not having to deal with any diseases. So for me to come to him and be like, shut up, it just would feel kind of insensitive in my perspective.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that makes so much sense. And I feel like one of the pitfalls of like right now and the place that we're all in as a society is to start thinking that no rational person could come to a different conclusion on a particular issue than you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, anyone on the other side of this must be an idiot or a terrible person.
Yeah.
And there's just so many things, like, especially coming from a religious background, there's so many things that anchor you to positions that you don't know about, but like you have to uphold, because to question them is to like throw everything into question,
Yeah. And I'm not going to say, I think that there are a lot of apologists who have come up with pretty logical reasons for why the Bible is legit. And there's a lot of very smart people who have explanations for all the questions that you ask about Christianity. So to just label them all as idiots, it's like, that's not really going to accomplish anything,
Exactly. Yeah. You have to decide like what you want. Do you want to try to reach these people, or do you want to write them off and feel superior?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. That's really painting it in a black and white view. That's probably not accurate, but
I think, there's shades of gray to that. But yeah, I'm definitely in a position where me and my parents disagree on a lot of things, but we've been able to learn to coexist pretty well with each other. And I feel like I've heard a lot of stories of families where that doesn't really work out that way. And there is, that rift that happens. But I am pretty lucky to be in a position where me and my parents have been able to just kind of agree to disagree on the things that we disagree on and everything. But
yeah,
the thing that's really good about my parents is that they're always willing to listen to why I believe a certain thing. Like, I had a conversation the other day with my dad about like capitalism, and he was willing to listen to why I believe certain things on, different perspectives.
That does make me question their Christian credentials.
Yeah.
Well, he never, you can have a conversation about something without having to, he still stood firm to all his beliefs when he's talking about it,
Sure. Well, having the conversation, at least the civil discourse is what we're missing often. So as long as that you can get that, I feel like we've maybe accomplished something.
Yeah, absolutely. But then, the question is like, sometimes should you just say, okay, you've gone too far. I don't want to have civil discourse with you anymore because it's, it's not worth it. And that is sometimes the answer too. And I feel like that is a complicated road to figure out.
Definitely.
I agree.
Yeah,
navigating that is tough.
There's definitely issues like that like, I've come to with certain family members where it's like, we're not going to agree. And to talk about this is just to invite chaos, like conflict. So I'm just not going to talk about this with you,
Yeah, I was just over at my cousin's house, and I was sitting with my cousin and my cousin's boyfriend, and her boyfriend was like, yeah, she really doesn't want me to get the vaccine because she's really worried about it. And I was just like, I don't want to get into an argument about this. I was just like, well, from what I've seen, there haven't been too many side effects. And then we just moved on to a different topic because I didn't want to argue about that,
Yeah, that's definitely on that list right now.
Yeah.
Which vaccine did you get?
I got Pfizer.
Yeah, me too. Did you get any side effects after your second shot?
No worse than the first shot. I was just basically like kind of out of it and sore for a day, like sore in my arm.
I got nothing after the first shot. The second shot, I got at like 8:30 in the morning. I was fine all day, and like 9:30 that night, I just started feeling like garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And like I got like this chill, and I just could not quit shaking. Like I literally went to bed and I like had to concentrate to not just sit there and like shiver to the point of like convulsions, it felt like. But the next morning I woke up and I felt kind of groggy and had a headache, and by noon I was fine.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people who don't really know about these sorts of things, they don't realize that that feeling like crap is actually just your body's immune system responding to it. So it can actually be a good thing to see that you have a fever, that you're, feeling bad, because that just means that your immune system is responding to trying to kill the dead virus that they put in you. So,
I mean, either that or it takes like 12 hours to sterilize yourself.
Yeah, it takes 12 hours to turn you gay.
Dude, I would have paid extra for the one that sterilized me.
Yeah, right.
I just sent Sam a gift certificate.
Yeah, have you been vaccinated, Sam?
Oh yeah, super vaxxed. So vaxxed, it's ridiculous right now.
Yeah.
Which one did you get?
Pfizer, baby.
Oh, we're all Pfizer boys.
Pfizer boys.
Pfizer boys. Oh man, Ryan, it's been a lot of fun having you on here. I really appreciate you talking to us about your story. I had no idea you're on America's Got Talent, so that was a fun thing to learn. Now I'm gonna go find those videos.
Yeah, watch the first round. Do not watch the second round where I made a very cringy performance and got sent home.
I actually forgot to ask you how far you made it. So round 2. I don't know how many
round
rounds.
2, yeah, is the spoiler alert. Yeah.
Well,
can I ask one thing really quick?
Yeah.
Casey, you said you're like an apathetic agnostic. How would you like define where you sit as far as that goes?
I'm not. So I'm not an atheist. Like, I just feel like I don't know, and I just don't care enough to invest in finding out right now. Like I feel like I spent so many years of my life like trying to figure this out and trying to define a position. At this point, like, I'm not willing to read a book about it or to do any research. Like, and really, like, I feel like Sam and I are kind of opposites in certain ways. Like, Sam is a big reader, and so like we have like these guests on that are authors or deep into theology and stuff, and they've read a lot of the same things, and he has like really nuanced perspectives on that stuff. Like me, I'm not a reader. I feel like I garner all information from just talking to people and hearing their stories. Like, that's what interests me more than anything.
Yeah, I'm not much of a reader either. And definitely my response when people are like, well, you should read this book and this book and this book, my response now is like, well, I also have a lot of other religions that I also want to study. So I feel like I've gotten enough Christianity for now. I want to learn more about Islam and, Hinduism and that sort of thing. Cause I feel like I've gotten enough of that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I learned enough about other religions from my Christian teachers.
Yeah, they did.
I'm sure you got the most accurate view of those faiths from your Christian teachers.
It's like everybody that you learn about a religion from is an apostate of that religion that switched to Christianity.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, I was definitely taught that atheists are only atheists because they hate God and want to go like have sex all the time or whatever.
The funny thing about people who are like, oh man, you've been unconvinced about something your entire life, you should read this one book and that'll fix it. It's like,
I hate
the
it.
idea that like reading one book will, as opposed to like building blocks, like if you gave, like when I first started shifting in my beliefs, going from like your conservative evangelicalism to where I'm at now, which is ironically, you could maybe argue based on my inability to give specific answers about exactly what I believe, could be an agnostic too, but I just kind of, along with admitting that I can't know and don't really know, I like I've found a way to make this work for me, and the principles of it I think reflect what I understand to be the truth of the universe. So like it ties in for me in a way that I can make work. So like I think you could find these principles and this way of being that I think is true in other religions. There'll be like the quote unquote liberal version of those religions too. Like if you
Yeah.
look at sticks from Judaism to Islam to Christianity, they're all kind of similar in the things they say, but they extrapolate the information and those understandings of truth from different books. But I'm like, if back in my conservative evangelical days, you gave me a book that I would read now, I would look at that. I would get 10 pages in and be like, this is horse shit, and put it right in the garbage. It's like, you can't just flip somebody's understanding like that. Like, you read
This is
things
horse
based on your
poop.
interests and where you're.
Yeah, you wouldn't say shit.
Yeah, I wouldn't have said it then. Man, I remember censoring myself a lot. Like, you would just say, like, you would say F or fuck. Like, you would never finish it. Like, you were like, if you finish the word, like something bad was going to happen. And then
my parents told me not to say frick because it was like a substitution word for,
the substitution words.
Yeah,
that was a big
like, what's
deal.
heck? What's darn it? What's literally every word that we have that's not a swear is a substitution for a swear.
But something that I think is interesting is I feel like there's this stereotype of atheists that, you know, I mean, from the Christian perspective, atheists are like, I don't know, they've been tempted by the devil into believing what is wrong, so they want to tempt Christians away from Christianity. But me sitting here as someone who is an atheist, I'm like, I don't care how you label yourself. I don't need you to have the perfect label. I don't need you to tell me that you're not a Christian or you're agnostic or atheist. Like, it doesn't matter at all to me. So, but yeah, I think it's so insulting. It can be very insulting of your own intelligence and your own convictions when people assume that the only reason you aren't a Christian anymore is because you haven't read the right book or you haven't heard the right thing. It's like, can't you have some respect for me that I've done research and I have reasons for why I believe what I believe now, you know?
The answer is no. Dude, okay, let me throw something out there and lose the respect of everyone listening. So you want to know what's more compelling to me than any of that? And maybe this is just like my personality or my learning style or whatever. So I was talking to, we'll just say, a friend of mine, and he was at a relative's house that has a pool. And it was wintertime. They had a cover stretched over the pool, but it had been raining. So there's like all this water on the cover of the pool, right? So they're inside. They're sitting at the table, talking, having a good time and stuff. And he's like, I just got this like feeling, like this like shiver up my spine where I was like, where's my son so-and-so? And everybody at the table was like, I think he's downstairs playing with the other kids or something. And he's like, no, I gotta go. I'm going to go find him. So he walks outside and his kid had fallen onto the cover of the pool. He was face down in the water. And like when he pulled him out, he was just blue.
Oh, wow.
And so they start like CPR. They call the cops. There's a cop, for some reason, it's out in the middle of nowhere. There's a cop like right around the corner. So a cop's there immediately. His kid, like, you know, totally incapacitated, all of a sudden just like coughs up all this water and comes to. And like for some, I don't know what that is. And maybe that's just a person telling a story from the light of, you know, skewed 2020, right? But
sure.
For some reason, like that to me makes me more compelled that there's something out there that I don't understand. Like, because I'm pretty content to just be like, I don't know. I don't know what it is, and that's fine.
But when you hear that story of someone getting a feeling and just having no rational explanation for why.
Right. It just, I don't know. That to me is, for some reason, is more compelling, that there's something beyond like what I can sense and see and smell and see that makes me think, well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, maybe there is something more.
Yeah.
And like, what about Bigfoot? You know?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, what about Bigfoot? What about Loch Ness Monster? I mean,
for me, where I'm at, I'm like very skeptical, and I think I have never really had one of those unexplainable experiences. So maybe that's why I have, am more in the skeptical realm. But I would consider myself an agnostic atheist, because when someone described it to me, it's like agnostic means you don't know, and atheist means you don't believe. So it's like, I don't believe in God, but I also don't know whether or not there is a God. So that's sort of where I sit, basically.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, there was this one, this is, I don't know why it reminded me of this, Casey. Maybe because it's a life and death story that you told. But in youth group, I heard a story, and tell me if this doesn't make you believe in the power of the Lord. I don't know what will. So let me know where you guys stand with your faith after I tell this story. Okay.
Okay.
So this guy goes out, Christian man, with his son. Son's a Christian. Takes his non-believer friend. They go out on a boat together. They're having a good old time, chatting it up, and then the waves get a little bit crazy, and a storm rolls in, and things get wild, and eventually both children fall overboard, and the waves are going nuts, and this one life preserver. And the dad yells out to his son. He says, "I know I'll see you again," and he throws the life preserver to the
So we're jumping ahead by laughing.
So he lets his son die.
That's sacrifice, dude.
That's Abraham, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Abraham.
I heard that story when I was a teenager. I was like, wow, I don't know if I could do that for God, but that is beautiful. And now I'm like, that is fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any correct answer to like what you would do in that scenario, but
as a parent, I can tell you, I would save the fucking shit out of my kid. I would
your actual kid,
yeah. Like, look, man, I'm really sorry. You're probably a good ass dude. I feel bad for your parents. I'll go to your funeral. Throw the fucking thing to my kids real fast.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Did they tell you that story before or after they did the Columbine drills, where they like put a finger gun to your head and asked you to say whether you believed in God?
And is there ever been an instance where like shooters asked you if you believe in God or not? I don't think I've ever seen that in the news of that actually happening.
Well, I think Billy Graham Jr. It's Franklin Graham. He probably has a story like that.
Yeah.
Maybe in a different country, but I think in America, I don't think people are really being very persecuted for their faith in America.
I mean,
I don't know.
There's the war on Christmas. That's pretty fucking tough.
True.
We're barely surviving the war on Christmas. It's a war of attrition for sure. But
yeah. Yeah, I think one of the times that I started feeling like I was having doubts is I was at my friend's church, and they, in front of the whole congregation, they're like, our prayer group went to a hospital this week, and we prayed for everyone in the hospital, and then everyone in the hospital just started walking out of the hospital, and they were all healed. I was like, what?
What?
Yeah, they claimed that they went to a hospital and healed everyone by praying. I'm like, no. I did not hear about this in the news or anything. Like,
come on, Pastor Terry, you're overselling it.
You're going too far, Terry. You can say you healed one guy.
Oh my God, that's a bold move. That is a bold move.
I was like, okay.
Oh my God. Well, I feel like we made some breakthroughs here today, guys.
I do too. For sure. I mean, I think you guys are close to getting saved, so that's nice.
Mm-hmm. You've brought me back.
Listen, I have one request. If you find yourself coming back, I want to be the one to re-baptize you. That's the only thing I ask.
Right, you can be the one to throw me the life preserver.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I can be the person that drowns.
Yeah.
Ryan, do you want to plug any of your stuff? I know you got a YouTube channel. You're big on TikTok. Go ahead and
Oh,
throw your
sure.
stuff our way.
Oh, yeah. Just look up Mr. Beard wherever you want to find me. So
Mr. Beard. There's only one, and you'll
only
find
one.
him.
Well, there's other people who there. I think there's like a beard care brand that's named Mr. Beard. So you might have to search a little bit, but yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. This was a really great conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great to meet you, man.
Yeah, you too.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.